Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. As you may know, I'm an entrepreneur, an educator, and a professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake. My main goal is to introduce you to pioneers in the field of education and to let you know about topics that you may not be aware of, but you may be interested in. Today, we have the honor to have with us Kayla Orton. She's an expert in strategic marketing and communication. And she's going to explain us today in simpler terms what does it mean for us. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Antonio.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
All right, Kayla. So let's start a little bit about, talking about yourself, your career, and, how do you get to where you are right now? For
Oh
our
boy,
folks out there.
it's a long story. How much time do you have?
Hey, all you need.
Well, I knew very early. I think I was about 7 years old when I knew that I wanted to be a marketer of some kind. I memorized every advertising slogan on television and was constantly drawing and doing artwork. So I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design and visual communications. And then I started my early career at an ad agency in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
So there, I was able to work with a lot of large, high-profile clients. Had a lot of exposure on a lot of different accounts. It was a lot of fun. I traveled a lot. So I did that for about 12 years. And then I met a wonderful man and had twin boys. And my life changed dramatically. I got out of that world for a little bit, and we owned a restaurant and some beach hospitality businesses that I did the marketing for. So I did that for a little while. And then in about 2008, I decided to become an independent consultant for industries. I worked for large oil and gas corporations. I worked in the healthcare industry. I would go into companies and basically just listen, try to help them formulate their strategic plans, and then execute those plans. Through doing that, I had the opportunity to work in governmental and public affairs, and I did a lot of, actually I was a community liaison for many United Way companies.
Wow.
Through doing this, and I really enjoyed that type of work. I enjoyed working with people. Also worked in the people and culture department, did a lot of employee development training, a lot of diversity and culture training. And I worked in HSE, health, safety, environmental departments, helping employees learn how to be, safer in their work, and at work and at home.
That is fantastic.
Through doing all that, I actually realized how much I wanted to learn. So that's when I decided to go back to school at University of Houston Clear Lake. And I studied human behavior and also got my master's in instructional design and technology. And my core focus was human performance improvement.
Wow.
So after I did that, I worked my practicum at UTMB in the human behavior department on the 4R initiative for healthy relationships in schools.
Okay. The 4R initiative.
Right. Have you heard of that?
A little bit.
Yeah,
Can you explain that for?
Well, it's a consortium of researchers and professionals. It's based out of Canada, I believe, and they actually have developed curriculums. They go into schools and teach. They start with the 7th grade in middle school. They teach kids the 4R, all about relationships.
Sure.
Healthy relationships, making good decisions, teen dating violence prevention. And studies have shown that this really does work if you catch the kids at that age level. So I did that. Then I went to work for a Japanese engineering, procurement, and construction firm for 2 years. I was under contract with them, and I did the same sorts of work. We were doing a culture transformation basically within the company. Most recently, I'm excited to be working for Lumen Education in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
It's a foundation of 5 Montessori schools,
Okay.
ages birth through 3rd grade.
Okay.
So I'm helping them with their strategic marketing and communication plans. It mostly revolves around donor relations.
Okay.
And I'm also consulting for various other companies, mostly small to medium-sized organizations.
That is fantastic. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, your experience
Probably
is so
too long.
No, but no, your experience is so vast. And the great thing about your experience is you have worked in private and non-profit organizations, and as you know, research shows that there's a direct connection between the way that organizations communicate their marketing and their performance. And so I wanted to kind of follow up on what you were saying in your experience. How's the dynamic, the marketing and communication dynamic within nonprofit organizations? Because it's what most of our viewers are interested in. How do become, first of all, why is that important? And second, in your opinion, and second, how to become proficient in that area within your nonprofits, for superintendents that may be watching us right now, or principals that are, or PR directors or marketing directors in school districts that are looking at us right now. Why is that important, and how to become proficient in that area, and how's the dynamic look like?
With regard to strategic marketing
yes.
communication plans?
Yes.
Okay. Well, nonprofits are definitely different from for-profit organizations. The motives are different.
Mm-hmm.
The messages are different. The target audience is different. You're not strictly selling goods and services for financial gain. You're looking into how can I develop better relationships with my donors? Where am I going to find these donors? How can I recruit volunteers? How can I encourage teamwork and collaboration?
Mm-hmm.
How can I develop a culture of trust and respect? Those types of things. So the basic plan is actually, that I use, is basically the same. It's just that in each step of the plan, you'll have different measurable
Correct.
goals. You'll have different media channels. You'll have a different implementation process, different ways to measure.
Mm-hmm. But both are similar.
Both are very
approaches.
similar.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because sometimes people are in nonprofit. They tend to think that they're like an isolated world, and when you start digging in, you realize that there's a lot of similarities in the private sector and in the nonprofit sector, in terms of functionalities and organizational approach. In other words,
Right.
functional organizations tend to be similar regardless if they're nonprofit or profit, in their approach. So in terms of, but there's a lot of misperceptions in nonprofit, at least that I've seen all the time in school districts and schools in terms of marketing, because some people tend to think, or they have the misperception that marketing is more like a fashion tool to promote personal agendas for superintendents or principals, when in reality all research shows that a good strategic planning and marketing can solidify educational programs, can attract and can increase enrollment, and in the end can increase more resources to provide better programs. What is your thinking process behind
all
it?
of those things? Yes, and it is important to begin with your strategic plan to develop your core team. Try to select members of your team who do have different levels of experience, so cross-cultural. With regard to schools, involve teachers, involve students, involve people.
So start with a committee, with
Exactly.
different
Develop
levels.
a core team first, right, so that you can understand different people's perspectives.
And what about the goals that you're talking about? Is it important? Because some organizations already have their goals or already have their vision or mission. In your opinion, your experience, is it wise to revisit those when you're in this process, or is better to focus on what you have right now and start, working with what you have?
Okay, since we're talking about process, you want to me to just
Yeah,
sort
yes.
of talk about the process that I use a little bit and
absolutely.
how it works? Okay. Well, in marketing communications, you do have your key elements.
Okay.
And depending on who you talk to, these key elements. The words are slightly different, but they're all basically the same. And I'll talk about marketing first, and then we'll talk about strategic marketing.
Absolutely.
In marketing, you've got your target audience. You have your context. You have your intended outcomes. You have your key messages. Who do you want to reach? You have your measurement goals. You have, well, actually media and then measurement. With strategic, you're adding another layer to that. You're going in first with an analysis phase. And then you're going to make sure that you have a measurement phase at the end. But I like to do measurement throughout each phase of the cycle.
Interesting.
That way you can sort of check yourself.
And make adjustments.
Make adjustments as you need to. I use, within the marketing, and there's a lot to it, but I'm trying, I usually work with a visual diagram, so I'm having to actually think. But within, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Within
the process.
The process, right. I take the key marketing the key elements of the marketing and weave them into the overall process model of how we're going to achieve all of this. So I use a process that's very similar to the ADDIE model that educators use. It's analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate.
Exactly, which is a cycle.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
So in the first step, in your analysis phase, ideally you want to look at as much research and collect as much data as you can. That's not always possible with time restraints. So sometimes you have to sort of pare down the analysis phase. But ideally, you would have a formative evaluation period where you maybe read articles and figure out what's worked for other similar companies. Interview
to avoid reinventing the wheel.
Right. Interview people, have focus group discussions, maybe some surveys. And then after you sort of figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are and the gap that you want to close, then you can move to the design, the define phase, which is setting your metrics, setting your goals.
Which are usually aligned to the organizational goals or the school goal, or are different goals for that, or maybe goals for that particular campaign?
Right. Well, overall, the overall program is going to be a strategic plan that is related to all of your goals. And some companies could do it on a 1, 3, 5-year basis. Within that, you're going to have your marketing plan, and that could be a different set of goals.
Correct.
So it's sort of layers and layers and layers that you can get into when you're doing this. It's like building a house.
Correct.
You have to have a blueprint to know what you're building, and you don't just have one plan. You have a floor plan, plumbing plan, electrical plan.
Correct.
I'm not an architect, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're good.
You get the idea.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay.
So
when you're doing a strategic, what you're saying is in your approach, you like to measure each one of the steps to make adjustment and.
Right, and it doesn't have to be a formal measurement. It could be an informal measurement. It could just be talking to your colleagues to see, hey, is this working? Or you could get into doing a social media campaign and realize that something's not working and you need to change your course midstream a little bit.
Gotcha. Now, in your experience, what is the time frame for that process, or it varies per organization? I mean, or how much does it take to establish a strategic marketing plan?
Well, marketing plans are typically shorter. Most of the marketing plans that I work on are 3 months to a year. Okay. I have people sometimes that need a marketing plan in 2 days, and you're just like fast tracking, the program. But even then, you can do a quick analysis, define your goals in your head, move on to your development phase where you're going to actually create your materials to best reach your audience, and then you can implement it and measure it.
Interesting.
There are all sorts of process models that people use. If I'm in a company and the work is geared more around process improvement, we're going to switch to different models. So, and sometimes the process people in the marketing, the line is getting really, really blurred nowadays between communications, training, and performance improvement. It's good to sort of have some sort of a process to follow, and I find that the ADDIE, or in my case, the analyze, define, create, implement, and evaluate model works really well.
Well, and I think what you're talking about, I see a lot of similarities with, because I teach strategic planning in the university, and I see a lot of stuff of what you're saying are similar to my experience working with strategic planning and teaching strategic planning. Is it regular for you to, when you're involving a lot of stakeholders initially, in the initial phases of the plan, that it becomes a little messy, the process in terms of ideas, discussion? Is it normal, or because? Yeah. Or
let me get a drink of water.
Absolutely. Because sometimes we get caught up on that idea that that it has to be a flawless process with no many discussions, with no many interactions. When in reality, what I tell my students all the time, in my experience, has been the messier the process initially, the better it is, because you can clarify doubts, address concerns, and then polish the plan and adapt the plan to what really the organization really wants. What is your take on that?
Right. It is a messy, complicated process. I've actually worked in large organizations where we've had 20 people involved in the decision making on a new brand strategy or a new employee development program, and because everyone has a different perception, it makes it difficult to make decisions at times. So I really think it's best to assign a core team. Depending on what situation you're in, it could be several people, it could be 2 people, it could be 12 people, and have your key decision makers decided on before you even start the process.
Okay.
Everyone is different.
Everybody's different.
Right.
Gotcha. But what you see, at least you see a lot of similarities between profits and non-profits in terms of the process, right?
Well, I find that I teach nonprofits a lot about having a process, because they don't always know. Just to compare and contrast, if I'm in a corporate environment, I could be working with a team of 20 people, and one of those people might be a web developer, and a couple of IT guys, and a couple of designers, a copywriter, community relations person, some directors. Whereas a lot of times in nonprofit, you just have 1 or 2 people that are wearing many hats. It makes it a little more complicated. And what makes it even more complicated is sometimes I don't think leaders actually know what goes into this process.
In terms of time frame, or in terms of resources?
In terms of time frame, because you can look at a nice marketing piece, you can look at a video, a website, a printed newsletter, and from an aesthetic viewpoint, you're thinking, oh, that's really pretty, somebody just pushed a button and created that, not really realizing
all the work
that goes into it. So I do spend a lot of my time educating people on what
and picking up on that, so when you start in the process for nonprofit or profit, or especially in the case of nonprofit, do you have like a specific time frame already developed for them when you start working with them? In other words, you go, analyze the organization, have interview a couple of people here and there, and then develop like a time frame plan for them with different stages, or how does it work?
Right. I do develop time frames for people. Okay. That's part of the strategy. That's in your define phase. A lot of times I'll go into a company and they'll tell me exactly what they need and what time frame they've already decided on that. So we sort of have to look at things, and I can advise them what's realistic and what's not, because all organizations should produce high quality visual products. and sometimes you do have to cut corners because people will tell you, I need this tomorrow, basically. I mean, just today I had 3 clients tell me that they needed, things
Like
this
yesterday.
afternoon,
Yeah,
like I
exactly.
need it today.
Yeah.
And so there is a balancing act there, and you have to keep a sense of humor about it. You really do.
I want to shift gears a little bit towards communication a little bit.
Sure.
Research shows that school administrators play a critical role promoting trusting relationships with their staff, basically teachers and also the students. So, based on your experience, what do you think that administrators should do to promote effective and strategic communication within the organization? From a school administrator perspective, what do you think that they should do to become more efficient in that area?
With regard to developing trusting relationships.
In communication, yes.
Okay. I really think it's important for schools to proactively develop a culture of trust and collaboration, engagement, and respect. And I think that starts with relationships. If you're a school administrator, get in the schools, be there, listen, motivate, inspire, develop positivity campaigns. I'm borrowing some ideas from the corporate world, but this is an area that I worked a lot in. And when you've got a lot of different people coming from different cultures, it makes it difficult for everyone to understand each other. And then on top of that, you have a lot of kiddos that don't come from the best backgrounds. They don't have a positive atmosphere at home. And I think in order for them to feel safe in their environment and feel like they have a voice and that they can communicate, that they do have the support that they need within the walls of their individual school. So coach your teachers, give them sensitivity training, teach people not to speak negatively, speak in a positive manner.
Correct. Now you see a lot of, is that an issue in, like, for example, with CEOs or department heads in the corporate America? Because I think a lot of those knowledge are transferable to nonprofits. Do you sometimes one of the things that you hear principals and superintendent hearing is the time to establish those relationships. How do I put it within my daily duties?
Sure.
And so, what do you think about what is your take? And what are the things that the CEOs or the top executives do in the corporate that could be applicable and transferable to nonprofits?
Sure. And in my master's program, I was the only educational person in there,
Exactly.
basically, but it was fun and rewarding for me.
Yeah,
I got to learn a lot, and that was one of the things that teachers expressed concern with. Is there's so many demands, they have very little time, and they're just under so much pressure to perform already. What can you do? And I like to tell people that, strategic communication doesn't have to be a big formal print and video program. It starts with discussions. It starts with on the first day of class, get to know your kids, get that back and forth communication going with them, create a vision board together of your interest, have a positivity campaign and let the students create videos. They'll do this on their own time.
Right.
I mean, kids love to create.
Correct.
Plaster the hallways with positivity posters. Let the students design the posters.
Correct.
In the art class. Put them in the lunchroom.
But because a lot of times there's a misperception in regards to creating those positive environments in school is more a barely kumbaya approach, when in reality it impacts performance.
It does.
You can see, is it the same in the corporate world?
It's exactly the same. I mean, anytime you have an organism that's spending that much time in their environment, they need to be happy. And anything that essentially the teachers and the stakeholders, or the teachers and the students are the stakeholders in the school.
Correct.
They need to be happy.
They need to, yeah.
They- you
That's why
know,
you see
we need to
companies
find
like
ways to
Google
make them
or,
happy.
or Amazon or Microsoft making sure that, or Facebook, that their employees are happy in their content because they connect to performance.
Right, right. Involve your teachers and students in, you'll have to and not everyone can do this. You'll have to handpick, certain people to participate, to represent the entire school, but let
Correct.
them participate in informal discussion groups. Let them provide ideas.
And the great thing is a lot of those things don't cost any money.
They don't. That's the thing. They don't cost any money.
Yeah.
You're listening, and then little things. Some of the things that we've done are to have safe zones where you can sort of like just tell someone if you're not happy and why, or provide a suggestion box, or
That's really interesting.
those types of things.
So, in your experience, what are the key elements for within strategic communications? What are the things that you will pinpoint? Okay, these are the key elements that you should have when talking about strategically communicate with your stakeholders in general.
Well, that goes back to your specific strategic goals.
Okay.
Every organization has a unique mission, and your specific strategic goals should drive back to your mission and drive back to your shared vision.
To your vision, okay.
So it's really a process of knowing your organization,
Correct.
knowing where you are now, where you want to be, what can you outline the steps you need to get there, and knowing your stakeholders, knowing your audience.
Knowing your audience.
Because some things that work for third graders aren't going to work for 10th graders. So you have to be able to adapt and put yourself in their shoes. It's all about your customer.
Being aware of who you're talking to, be aware who you're trying to reach to.
Exactly. Who are you trying to reach? How am I going to inspire this person on an emotional level to be able to reach them, to have them, change their mind or make a new choice, or hopefully transform an entire culture.
What about marketing though? What are the secrets in your experience? What have been the secret for a successful marketing campaign that you say, wow, this one really worked out because this, and that?
Well, then again, you have to know your audience because it's different in every case. Do you want to talk about nonprofits?
Yeah, let's talk about nonprofit, yeah.
Okay, well, a lot of times I work with small nonprofits who have very little budget.
Correct.
And they're already under a lot of pressure, wearing a lot of different hats, like we
Correct.
talked about. So
They have to be really precise and really, really effective, right?
right, exactly. But you still need a strategic plan, even if you are a small nonprofit organization. And there are a lot of people out there that are willing to help you create a plan if you've never done it before. There are templates online that you can use that make it really easy to do it yourself. And then start small. Think big, but start small with the process that is set and your specific goals. A lot of my nonprofit clients don't do a lot of printed material because it's expensive.
Correct.
But we can do content marketing on a website. We can do email campaigns. We can do digital newsletters. And the great thing about doing all those things is that they can be really attention-getting and interactive. And the apps that we're using now to create these things with have the built-in analytics, which make it really easy to know who's opening my docket, who's even paying attention to what I've sent,
is it working
sent
or
to
it's not
them.
working?
So that then you're actually tracking your results after you've launched your program.
What about, so the email that you mentioned, the emails, a lot of schools use emails to communicate, and also nonprofit. Is that effective? I mean, I'm talking about mass emails because you see them all the time. Does it work? Is it something that pay off, or is a waste of time?
I have seen it pay off.
Okay.
I've also heard that a lot of the times you can bombard people with too much information, and I know it's common in the for-profit world for a lot of companies to do guerrilla marketing where they're just constantly bombarding you with
This over and
you know,
over
you
again.
get the emails
Yes.
every day long that go into your spam folder.
Yeah.
So you really have to think critically about how much information do I want to hit my potential donor list with,
Correct.
you know, or my potential
Target.
volunteers with.
That in a way that they don't start shutting you down because they get tired of you. Basically.
I get tired
Yeah.
of email marketing,
Yeah.
so it has to be strategic. The email marketing that we do is generally sent out on a consistently timed basis.
So it's not exactly. That's a really
So
good point, though.
it's not-
So it's not good to send it like all the time, but you have to have like specific, like you send it once a semester. And then-
Exactly.
yeah.
They know I'm going to receive my digital newsletter from the school, you know, once every quarter or twice a year,
Correct.
and you know that way they'll look forward to it. They're not getting something.
They're not
every-
getting tired of it.
I use email marketing a lot, specifically related to events. For instance, with Lumen Education, they do a lot of events to attract new donors, and we'll do like a little mini marketing program for that. Well, there'll be like a little postcard invitation and like an email, and then an Eventbrite invitation online that's all linked together, and they'll do those like every 6 to 12 weeks maybe. But then you're getting the specific information related to the event, and that allows you to make an informed decision if you want to, you know, go to that event or not.
Correct.
So you can use it for things like that.
And the other thing that the schools are using now a lot is social media. They're really
Exactly.
getting big on that. What is your experience on that? Do you think that it's effective or paid off?
Well, with my nonprofit clients, I don't think we've been using it long enough to know if it's effective in the long run.
Correct.
Like over a 5-year strategic communications plan, but I do know that we're getting results in the short term.
Okay.
And like I said, the great thing about the tracking
Of the apps that
software,
you can check
you
it
can
out.
go in and check it out immediately, and you know, send it out today, and go in and say, oh, so many people have
So many
opened this
people
up. They've
viewed it,
engaged with it this amount of time. Yeah, I love social media.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's engaging. I think
It's a fascinating world. Yeah.
that's a good way for teachers and students to relate to each other as well. I'm developing templates more and more. There are great apps online. One of them is Pablo. You can go in and create your branded organizational template so that any of your staff can go in and use those templates. They don't have to think about the design. It's already there.
Oh, that's
you can
great.
send it out on to multiple platforms on a time basis. So it really cuts out a lot of
Time-consuming
the
tasks.
time-consuming task. Right. If you have, if you're trying to have something designed in-house and you don't have all the fancy software like I use, the Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, then there are online apps. A good one is called Canva, where you can actually go in and design online with, using the tools that you have at hand. So.
That is so cool. So for our viewers out there, to kind of close it up, for those who are looking to start a marketing campaign, and they're in the schools or in the school district superintendents who may be watching us right now, and they're thinking about starting a marketing campaign for different purposes. One could be for a bond election. Another one could be to promote a new program that they're implementing. What are your recommendations to start that and put that in motion?
Sure. It's very common to have one marketing objective, more than one marketing
More than one.
objective at a time. That should be all part of your strategic communications plan. And then within that, each marketing initiative can have its own little, mini plan within the larger plan. My recommendation is to focus on one item at a time in the execution phase.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
right, especially if you're a small organization, to take that small step to start here, one marketing plan, one message, one audience, especially if you've never done it before. And then you could, move on to your next one.
Still growing.
Right.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you one more time for your time here today, Kayla. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today. Remember that we have these and many other videos and Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales YouTube channel, Antonio Corrales, and StarlingEvaluationAssessment.com. Please help somebody today and see you next time.
Thank you.